Captain America. Brave New World is a 2025 American superhero film based on Marvel Comics featuring the character Sam Wilson/Captain America. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, it is the fourth installment in the Captain America film series, a continuation of the television miniseries The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 2021, and the 35th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. The film was directed by Julius Onah from a screenplay by Rob Edwards and the writing teams of Malcolm Spellman and Dalan Musson and Onah and Peter Glanz. It stars Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson/Captain America alongside Danny Ramirez, Shira Haas, Carl Lumbly, Xosha Roquemore, Giancarlo Esposito, Liv Tyler, Tim Blake Nelson, and Harrison Ford. In the film, Wilson investigates a conspiracy involving President Thaddeus Ross Ford. Captain America. Civil War, 2016, ended the Captain America trilogy starring Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, and Wilson becomes the new Captain America in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Series writers Spellman and Musson were writing a new Captain America film by April 2021. Mackie signed on in August, Onah joined in July 2022, and the title Captain America New World Order was announced later that month. Additional cast members joined later in 2022. Nelson and Tyler returned from the second MCU film, The Incredible Hulk, 2008, while Ford replaced William Hurt as Ross following Hurt's death in March 2022. Ross becomes the superpowered Red Hulk in the film. Filming took place from March to June 2023 at Trilla Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, with additional filming in Washington, D.C. The subtitle was changed to Brave New World during filming. Matthew Orton joined in December 2023 to write for reshoots, which took place between May and November 2024. The involvement of Edwards and Glanz was revealed in December. Captain America. Brave New World premiered on February 11, 2025, at the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood, Los Angeles, and was released in the United States on February 14 as part of Phase 5 of the MCU. It received mixed reviews from critics, who took varying stances on the political commentary, story, characterization, and visual effects, though praised the performances of Mackie and Ford. Plot. 5 months after Thaddeus Ross is elected President of the United States, he sends Sam Wilson and Joaquin Torres, the new Captain America and Falcon respectively, to Oaxaca, Mexico, to stop the illegal sale of classified items stolen by the Serpent Society, a rogue special ops team led by Sidewinder. They recover the items, but Sidewinder escapes. Torres is excited to be taking on Wilson's former mantle, but Wilson is hesitant to involve Torres in dangerous missions due to the pair not having superpowers like the former Captain America, Steve Rogers. After the mission, Wilson and Torres train with Isaiah Bradley, a super soldier who was imprisoned and experimented on by the U.S. government. Ross invites Wilson and Torres to a summit with world leaders at the White House, and Wilson accepts on the condition that Bradley is also invited. Ross asks Wilson to help him reform the Avengers. During the summit, Ross explains that a new metal, adamantium, has been discovered on Celestial Island, which was formed when the celestial Tiamat emerged in the Indian Ocean. The recovered items were the first refined samples of the metal and were stolen from a Japanese mining operation. To avoid an arms race, Ross proposes a treaty to govern adamantium's mining and distribution. As he delivers his speech, the song Mr. Blue plays and causes several men, including Bradley, to begin shooting at Ross and other dignitaries. Apprehended by Ross's head of security, the former Black Widow Ruth Batsarif, the men regain their senses and deny knowledge of the attack. While investigating, Wilson is ambushed by Sidewinder and captures him. Torres tracks a call on Sidewinder's phone to a hidden black site in West Virginia called Camp Echo 1. Ross tries to salvage the treaty, but the Japanese government blames him for the theft of their adamantium and the subsequent White House attack. Ross realizes that the mastermind of these events is Dr. Samuel Stearns, who gained advanced intelligence after being exposed to Bruce Banner's blood during the Abomination's rampage through Harlem. Ross imprisoned Stearns at Camp Echo 1, publicly blamed him for the Abomination's actions, and promised to pardon him if Stearns helped advance him to the presidency. Wilson and Torres find Stearns and learn how he uses technology and the song Mr. Blue to control minds. He escapes while they are fighting mind-controlled soldiers. Batseraph investigates Camp Echo 1 herself and helps Wilson and Torres. They meet with Wilson's military friend Dennis Dunphy, who has Sidewinder in custody. Wilson learns enough from Sidewinder to deduce Stearns' plan to destroy Ross's reputation. Wilson, Torres, and Batseraph go to Celestial Island, where Ross and the Prime Minister of Japan are racing to claim ownership of adamantium. Stearns controls the minds of 2 American pilots who attack the Japanese fleet. Wilson and Torres intercept the planes and convince the Japanese to stand down. Torres is critically injured in the fight. Ross tells Wilson that he is dying of heart failure and had Stearns develop pills that have prolonged his life. Ross refused to release Stearns for fear that he would no longer make the pills, leading to Stearns' anger and plans for revenge. Stearns kills Dunphy, preventing him from warning Wilson that the pills have been adding gamma radiation to Ross's body. After Wilson is consoled by his friend Bucky Barnes, Stearns surrenders himself to Wilson. Ross loses control of his emotions during a press conference, transforming into a red Hulk-like creature, and destroys part of the White House. Wilson rushes to stop him. Unable to overpower Ross, Wilson attempts to calm him down by reminding him of visits to Washington, D.C.'s cherry blossom trees with his estranged daughter Betty. The two fight until they are exhausted, and Ross reverts to normal. Later, Bradley is exonerated. Wilson invites a recovering Torres to join the Avengers, and the treaty is ratified. Ross resigns and has himself incarcerated at the raft, where Wilson and Betty reconcile with him. In a post-credits scene, an imprisoned Stearns warns Wilson of a coming attack from other worlds. Cast: Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson / Captain America. Sam Wilson, an Avenger and former pararescueman, was trained in aerial combat and uses a specially designed wing pack. According to producer Nate Moore, Wilson's portrayal as Captain America is an underdog story, akin to Rocky Balboa from the Rocky series, as he has to rise without the superpowers or allies of the previous Captain America, Steve Rogers. Director Julius Onah highlighted that Wilson will be shown stepping up as a leader, with Mackie noting that Wilson's version of Captain America will focus on compassion, listening, and understanding, rather than judgment. As a non-super soldier, Wilson relies on his shield and vibranium wingsuit to keep up in combat. Mackie's training for the action scenes emphasized yoga and Pilates for flexibility and core strength. Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres / Falcon. Joaquin Torres, a first lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force, takes up the mantle of Falcon, using a wing pack similar to the one Wilson once wore. Mackie described the dynamic between Torres and Wilson as an equal friendship, contrasting with Wilson's past admiration of Rogers. While Torres admires Wilson, their bond is built on mutual respect. Mackie also advised Ramirez on wearing the Falcon suit. Shira Haas as Ruth Batseraph. Ruth Batseraph is an Israeli ex-Black Widow and serves as President Ross's security advisor. Her allegiance to Ross puts her at odds with Wilson in the film's paranoid thriller narrative. The character wears a suit that subtly nods to the comic book version's white and blue costume but is obscured by a jacket. Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley. Isaiah Bradley, a Korean War veteran and a super soldier who endured 30 years of imprisonment and experimentation, plays a crucial role in the story. When his mind is controlled by Samuel Stearns, and he is framed for an assassination attempt on President Ross, Wilson helps exonerate him, shedding light on the injustices Bradley suffered. Xosha Roquemore as Layla Taylor. Layla Taylor, a Secret Service agent working for President Ross, shares a past with Sam Wilson. While the character has a romantic history with Wilson in the comics, the film opts not to develop any romantic storyline between them. Giancarlo Esposito as Seth Volker / Sidewinder. Seth Volker, the leader of the Serpent Society, is a violent special ops figure. Esposito describes him as an intelligent, formidable antagonist, noting the physicality of the role, which contrasts with his character Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. The film version of Sidewinder doesn't use the snake-themed costume from the comics, but incorporates subtle nods to it, including color choices and blue eyes. Liv Tyler as Betty Ross. Betty Ross, a cellular biologist and estranged daughter of Thaddeus Ross, has a strained relationship with her father due to his obsession with Bruce Banner. Tyler returns to the role from The Incredible Hulk, 2008, where she plays a key part in the film's storyline, even though her physical presence is minimal, limited to a phone call and a brief appearance at the end. Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns, a cellular biologist who became superhumanly intelligent after being exposed to Bruce Banner's blood, returns in a major role. In the film, Stearns has been exploited by Ross for his abilities. His grotesque transformation from his previous appearance, where parts of his brain burst from his skull, is achieved through practical effects, creating a visually disturbing appearance. Harrison Ford as Thaddeus Ross / Red Hulk. Thaddeus Ross, now the President of the United States, transforms into Red Hulk in the film. Ford's portrayal uses motion capture for Red Hulk, marking a significant change in the character's dynamic with Wilson. Ross, once known for hunting Hulk, becomes a tragic figure when he himself becomes a Hulk. Ford replaces the late William Hurt, who originally played Ross in the MCU. Production. Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige stated in October 2015 that Captain America: Civil War, 2016, would serve as the conclusion to the Captain America trilogy, starring Chris Evans as Steve Rogers / Captain America. This followed the earlier films Captain America: The First Avenger, 2011, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, 2014. Feige noted that Civil War would be Evans's final solo Captain America film under contract, though Evans expressed openness to extending his role beyond the Avengers crossover films Infinity War, 2018, and Endgame, 2019. By January 2021, reports surfaced that Evans was close to signing a deal to reprise his role as Rogers for at least one project. It was speculated that his involvement would follow a similar pattern to Robert Downey Jr.'s post-Iron Man trilogy appearances as Tony Stark / Iron Man. However, Evans responded that the reports were news to him. In October 2018, Marvel Studios began developing a limited series for Disney Plus centered on Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson / Falcon and Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes / Winter Soldier from the MCU films. Malcolm Spellman was brought in as the head writer for the series, which was officially titled The Falcon and the Winter Soldier in April 2019. The series takes place after the events of Avengers: Endgame, 2019, where Steve Rogers passes on his shield and the mantle of Captain America to Sam Wilson. The story explores Wilson grappling with this responsibility, particularly as a black man, and the implications of taking on such a legacy. Before the show aired, Mackie mentioned that there had been no discussions about a second season, and he was unsure of his next MCU appearance due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Similarly, series director Carrie Scogland expressed uncertainty about a second season, stating that while she had told the story she wanted to in the first, there were still plenty of characters and themes left to explore. Executive producer Nate Moore pointed out that the series tackled evergreen themes, which could be revisited in future installments. Feige also acknowledged that there were potential ideas for a second season but emphasized that the series was designed to transition into an MCU film, much like WandaVision, 2021, had done before it. Following the release of the series finale, One World, One People, in April 2021, it was revealed that Spellman and fellow writer Dalan Musson had been tasked with writing a fourth Captain America film that would continue Sam Wilson's journey as the new Captain America. While rumors about Evans's return as Rogers swirled, it was expected that his involvement would be in a separate project. Mackie himself was initially unaware of any plans for a new film or second season but expressed excitement at the possibility of headlining an MCU film, particularly as a black actor. Over the following months, Mackie negotiated a deal to star in the upcoming Captain America film and officially signed on in August. Despite his enthusiasm, Mackie later shared that he had hoped to work on a second season of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier with Stan and their co-star Daniel Bruhl, who portrays Helmut Zemo, and felt some disappointment when plans shifted toward a film instead. Pre-production. Julius Onah was hired to direct the film in July 2022. Mackie said it would feature a new story and new characters rather than be a direct continuation of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Onah said Wilson would no longer be conflicted about being Captain America. That question has been resolved. Sam is our Captain America now. At San Diego Comic-Con later in July, the film's title was revealed to be Captain America: New World Order, and it was given a release date of May 3, 2024, making it part of Phase 5 of the MCU. The subtitle, which is also the name of the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, was noted for its use in politics, professional wrestling, and various conspiracy theories along with anti-Semitic rhetoric, and was deemed to be a controversial choice. Several cast members were announced at the D23 Expo in September. Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres/Falcon and Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, both reprising their roles as Samuel Stearns, returning from the second MCU film, The Incredible Hulk, 2008. And Israeli actress Shira Haas as the comic book character Sabra. Nelson was glad to return after years of disappointment over a sequel to The Incredible Hulk not being produced. Onah described New World Order as a paranoid thriller, and said filming would begin in early 2023. The announcement that Sabra, an Israeli superheroine, would be adapted for the film led to criticisms from some people who believed this would lead to negative stereotypical portrayals of Palestinians and Arabs. In the comics, Sabra is a member of the Mossad, and some of the Arab characters she interacts with were perceived to be misogynistic, anti-Semitic, and violent. The name Sabra also has different meanings to Israeli Jews and Palestinians. The Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel criticized the use of the character and called the comic book version's valorization of Mossad and perceived racism against Palestinians. Sickening. Youssef Munir, a Palestinian-American writer and analyst, felt the character could not have a positive role in the film based on her depiction in the comics and said turning Israeli spies into heroes was insensitive and disgraceful. In response, Marvel Studios said the film was taking a new approach to the character, just as other comics characters had been reimagined for modern audiences when brought into the MCU. This led to concerns from some other groups that Marvel was erasing the character's Israeli background, which the American Jewish Committee, AJC, compared to making Captain America Canadian. In the film, the character is a former Black Widow and high-ranking U.S. government official named Ruth Batsaref. The name Sabra is not used, nor is she a mutant or Mossad agent, but the character is depicted as a first-generation Israeli, has an Israeli accent, and Moore said she has the attitude and the essence of the comics character. He reiterated that the character's backstory was not changed in response to public concerns, and explained that using the Black Widow program to adapt characters who Marvel Studios didn't want to translate as one-to-one from the comics was a general idea that came up during the making of the film Black Widow, 2021. The character's inclusion prompted some calls to boycott the film, in part due to the Israel-Hamas war. Some supporters of Israel took issue with the character having allegiance to the U.S. government, while some who are critical of Israel protested the film's use of the character due to her depiction in the comics, with confirmation that the character would still be depicted as Israeli in the film. The AJC and the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, both praised the decision. In October 2022, Moore was revealed to be producing New World Order alongside Feige. Harrison Ford was cast as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross that month, replacing William Hurt, who portrayed the character in the MCU until his death in March 2022. Ford was reported to be appearing as Ross in this film as well as the following MCU film Thunderbolts * 2025. Marvel Studios considered changing course with Ross's role in the film's story following Hurt's death, believing no actor would want to take over from Hurt during that time. Ford reached out to Feige about possibly joining the MCU and agreed to take on the role without seeing a script. Ford saw playing Ross as an opportunity to honor what Hurt had done with the character and also continue with a character arc that he had enjoyed from the previous films. In the film, Ross becomes the President of the United States and eventually finds himself at odds with Wilson amidst a global conspiracy. Moore drew comparisons to the 2017 comic book storyline Secret Empire. He noted that Wilson wears a costume featuring the colors of the American flag while facing off with the president, and said the film's story was about the notion of a guy who believes in ideal, realizing that ideal is not always held up to the same standards by other people, and feeling really betrayed by where the American government has gone. Onah drew comparisons to Ford's film Clear and Present Danger, 1994, which features a similar conspiracy involving the president. He wanted to feature themes of bringing people together and focusing on shared experiences, believing these were central to Captain America and Sam Wilson's character, which he thought had political resonance, but was more about humanity than politics. Marvel Studios was supportive of this, despite Feige joking about Onah trying to save America with the film, also discussing parallels with real-world politics. Ford said similarities between Ross and any real presidents were coincidental, and his focus was on the character's own history, personality, and circumstances. From Onah's first conversations about the film, the Serpent Society, a group of snake-themed villains in the comics, was planned to be included. This paid off a joke Marvel made years earlier when announcing the third Captain America film as Captain America: Serpent Society, before revealing its true subtitle to be Civil War. Moore acknowledged that the team can come across as goofy, but he considered them to be part of Captain America's all-time Hall of Fame villain groups, and the creatives wanted to treat them seriously. Moore compared the film's version, described as a violent special ops team, to the more grounded version of the comic book character Batroc the Leaper that is introduced in The Winter Soldier portrayed by Georges St. Pierre. Pre-production work at Trilith Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, began on November 7th ahead of a planned filming start in March 2023. Gersha Phillips was the costume designer, and Ramsey Avery was the production designer after working on the MCU films Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 2017, and Spider-Man: Homecoming, 2017. Xosha Roquemore joined the cast in January 2023. Mackie expected to begin work on March 1. His Captain America costume was redesigned from the one seen in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was based on the mostly white costume that Wilson is known for wearing as Captain America in the comics. The new costume for Brave New World is mostly dark blue, with red and white accents, closer to the costumes Evans wore in The Winter Soldier and other films. The cowl that Mackie wore for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was removed at his request, as he struggled with the heat, the sweat, the fogged-up glasses, and said it was his worst nightmare. Ryan Meinerding, Marvel Studios head of visual development, worked on the costumed in March, Washington, D.C.'s Office of Cable Television, Film, Music and Entertainment said Marvel Studios would be filming in the city that June. Filming. Principal photography began on March 21, 2023, at Trilith Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, under the working title Rochelle. Kramer Morgenthau served as cinematographer. Onah wanted the film's action to be grounded and tactile, and give Wilson things to do that were not seen in his previous appearances. Avery reiterated that their intent was for the film to be more grounded in reality than recent MCU films had been. Liv Tyler joined the cast by the end of March 2023, reprising her role of Betty Ross from The Incredible Hulk. At that time, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was expected to reprise her MCU role as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine in the film. The start of the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike in May 2023 was not expected to impact production of the film, with Marvel Studios reportedly planning to shoot what they could during principal photography and make any necessary writing adjustments during the film's already scheduled reshoots. Later in May, set photos revealed that Seth Rollins was part of the cast and led to speculation that he was portraying a member of the Serpent Society. In June, Marvel Studios announced the new title Captain America: Brave New World. Jeremy Mattei at /Film praised the change, saying it strikes a far more optimistic perspective than New World Order, doubling as a commentary on the future of the famous superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and as a statement on some very overdue representation. The change was also deemed to be a wise decision by Collider's Hillary Remley, who noted that the original title could have been interpreted as having anti-Semitic connotations. Moore explained that Marvel Studios felt New World Order was really interesting and sort of moody and scary for a subtitle and was not intended to represent real-world issues. The studio decided to change the title after receiving feedback about how the phrase New World Order had been co-opted in the real world in a way that made people uncomfortable. At the time of the new subtitles announcement, Onah was revealed to have co-written the script with Spellman. The film's release date was soon delayed to July 26, 2024. Filming moved to Washington, D.C. By the end of June, the cherry blossom trees that are planted around the city are featured throughout the film, including during Wilson's fight with Ross at the end of the film, after the latter transforms into Red Hulk. Onah said he had vivid memories of the cherry blossoms from the time he lived near D.C. in Arlington, Virginia, as a child, and to him they aligned with the film's themes of empathy, since they were gifts to the U.S. from Japan. Mackie said filming in D.C. brought his MCU experience full circle, with the production staying at the same hotel and filming in the same areas as they did for his first MCU film. The Winter Soldier filming for Brave New World wrapped on June 30th. Post-production. By October 2023, there was potential for Brave New World to return to its May 2024 release date because it was further along in production than Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine 2024, which had taken over that date. However, this was considered unlikely and Brave New World's release was instead delayed to February 14, 2025. Following the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike's conclusion in November 2023, journalist Jeff Snyder reported that the film was not received well in an early test screening, that 3 major sequences were being cut, and that extensive reshoots were planned from January 2024 until that May or June and December. Matthew Orton was hired to write additional material for the reshoot, which were then scheduled to last from early to mid-2024. Orton previously worked on the Marvel Studios miniseries Moon Knight 2022. The same day, Rosa Salazar was revealed to have been cast in the film. Mark Ruffalo stated in February 2024 that he was reprising his MCU role as Bruce Banner/Hulk in the film. Adam B. Vary of Variety soon reported that Ruffalo was not appearing in the film, explaining that the actor had been asked about the film and had misspoken when expressing enthusiasm about it. Vary noted that there had been ongoing speculation about Ruffalo's potential role in the film due to the number of characters from The Incredible Hulk already set to appear, along with Ross's transformation into Red Hulk. In April, Feige and Mackie described the film as a grounded action thriller with no aliens, more similar in tone to The Winter Soldier than some recent MCU films. Mackie added that viewers did not need to have seen The Incredible Hulk to watch the film, saying Brave New World was a reset of the MCU that establishes new themes and antagonists for the universe moving forward. Giancarlo Esposito revealed in May 2024 that he had been cast in an MCU role and would be appearing, sooner rather than later, with his character being teased in a film before a bigger role in an MCU television series. He was confirmed to be appearing in Brave New World at the end of the month as part of the reshoots, which began at that time in Atlanta and were scheduled to last for 22 days. These were expected to be less extensive than the reshoots for the MCU films Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness 2022 and The Marvels 2023. Focusing on new action sequences and integrating Esposito, Brave New World was also expected to be much less expensive than The Marvels, which cost more than $300 million. The budget for Brave New World was reported to be $180 million in early June. Nelson returned to Atlanta for reshoot, which he described as redoing much of his original work. Mackie characterized the reshoots as just adding a few additional scenes to enhance the film and said there was no retooling or remaking. Moore said the reshoots were focused on creating the perfect political thriller tone, and the casting of Esposito was part of this. He believed the actor made the film more grounded despite his heightened material, similar to his role in the television series The Mandalorian, 2019 to 2023. Ford, Salazar, and Takahiro Hira also participated in the reshoots in July. The Remains of Tiamat, the Celestial whose emergence on Earth was halted by the Eternals in the MCU film Eternals, 2021, were revealed to be a focus of the film's story, allowing the introduction of the fictional metal adamantium to the MCU. Moore said Marvel Studios had been waiting to address Tiamat's remains in a story that could make the best use of them. Also in July, Esposito announced that he was portraying Seth Volker/Sidewinder, leader of the Serpent Society, and said he would return for additional reshoots in mid-November. In December 2024, Marvel credited the story to Spellman, Musson, and Rob Edwards, while Onah, Peter Glanz, and Orton received screenplay credit. Johannes Hawker Johannesson was revealed to be part of the cast, and Salazar was reported to be portraying Diamondback, a member of the Serpent Society. This confirmed speculation that she was playing the character based on her appearance in set photos. Rollins stated in January 2025 that he would no longer be appearing in the film following the rewrites and reshoots. Onah confirmed that Rollins was cast as a member of the Serpent Society and explained that he was replaced with Esposito's character during reshoots. Onah felt Esposito's inclusion was a no-brainer once he became available and thought the actor brought the right level of gravitas to the film and the Serpent Society team. Salazar's scenes as Diamondback were also cut from the final version of the film. Johannesson plays another member of the Serpent Society in the film, Copperhead, appearing alongside Esposito. Onah said Esposito's role in the film was great setup for further appearances of the Serpent Society in the MCU. The film's final writing credits were also revealed in January. Edwards received screenplay credit alongside the writing teams of Spellman and Musson and Onah and Glanz, with the story credited to Edwards, Spellman, and Musson. Additional off-screen literary material was attributed to Michael Castelline, Jeff Loeb, Orton, and Zeb Wells. Matthew Schmidt and Madeline Gavin edited the film. Schmidt previously worked on The Winter Soldier and Civil War. Brave New World is the first MCU film to not feature an animated Marvel Studios opening logo, instead presenting the studio's logo in no-nonsense black and white, without a traditional musical fanfare. Alessandro Ongaro was the visual effects supervisor, with visual effects provided by Weta FX, Digital Domain, Luma Pictures, Barnstorm VFX, UPP, Opsis, and Outpost VFX. Weta FX designed Red Hulk with Meinerding. Weta visual effects supervisor Dan Cox said they explored various design aspects from the comic books and did not want the character to just look like a color-swapped version of the Hulk. They hoped to make him more intimidating than the Hulk, with a more upright, athletic posture. Onah wanted the character to feel more tactical and methodical due to Ross's military background, and referenced a bear for poses where the character is on all fours. Ford's facial features were incorporated into the design based on scans of his face. The climactic confrontation between Red Hulk and Captain America in Washington, D.C. has more than 300 visual effects shots. Music. Main article, Captain America. Brave New World. Soundtrack. Laura Karpman was announced as the film's composer in August 2024. Karpman previously composed the music for the MCU series What If? 2021 to 2024, and Ms. Marvel, 2022, and the film The Marvels. Nora Kroll Rosenbaum, who worked with Karpman on What If?, provided additional music for the film. A soundtrack album featuring their music was released by Hollywood Records and Marvel Music on February 12, 2025. At that time, Mackie said the film's title song had been provided by Kendrick Lamar, which was interpreted as Lamar having written a new song for the film. However, it is his 2014 song that is played over the film's end credits. Additionally, the 1959 song Mr. Blue by the Fleetwoods is heard throughout the film as a trigger for characters being mind-controlled by Stearns. This is a reference to his Mr. Blue alias in The Incredible Hulk. Marketing. Feige and Mackie revealed the first footage from the film, focusing on Wilson meeting with Thaddeus Ross at CinemaCon in April 2024. The following month, McDonald's began selling Happy Meals with toys based on characters from the film, including Red Hulk and Diamondback. Stephanie Killoy at The Wrap noted that these characters had not been confirmed for the film by Marvel at that time, and the early reveal was likely due to the film's release being delayed but the marketing partnership with McDonald's not being pushed back to match. More footage from the film was shown at a Cine Europe panel in June teasing Disney's theatrical slate. A teaser trailer was released in July which drew comparisons to the Winter Soldier's tone, with Jennifer Willett of Ars Technica describing it as half superhero movie, half political thriller. The appearance of Red Hulk and the character's potential true identity were both widely discussed. Wink with a frown. Adam Chitwood at The Wrap wondered if rumors of Thaddeus Ross becoming Red Hulk were a red herring. The Verge's Charles Pulliamore questioned if the film being a continuation of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier would be difficult for general audiences to follow. Conversely, Sandy Schaefer and Chris Evangelista from Slash Film felt the film would not rely much on the series to have wider audience appeal. They called the trailer pretty good, considering the film recently completed reshoots. Noting that it largely contains action rather than plot details, commentators also noted the reveal that the remains of Tiamat would be featured in the film, after the emergence had largely been ignored in MCU projects since Eternal. Michael McWhorter at Polygon noted that the trailer shows the United States and other countries meeting at a global unity summit to discuss the Celestial, with a stylized version of Tiamat's hand being used as a logo for the summit. 110 later in July, Marvel released an updated version of the teaser for distribution in theaters that removed Isaiah Bradley's assassination attempt on Thaddeus Ross. This came following the attempted assassination of Donald Trump in Pennsylvania that month. Also in July 2024, Feige and members of the cast promoted the film at San Diego Comic-Con. More footage was shown, Esposito's role was announced, and Thaddeus Ross was confirmed to be the character who transforms into Red Hulk. Similar footage was also shown at the 2024 D23 Expo. Following online leaks of the San Diego Comic-Con and D23 footage, Marvel released an official look at Red Hulk within their video celebrating the company's 85th anniversary in August. A full trailer for the film debuted at D23 Brazil in November and was also released online, after the teases of Red Hulk in previously released footage. The trailer features Ross's transformation into Red Hulk and shots of the character fighting Wilson. Several commentators noted the trailer's unique style, featuring creepy black lines, split-screen shots, and a flickering text effect. Comparisons were drawn to political thriller films such as The Candidate, 1972, The Day of the Jackal, 1973, The Parallax View, 1974, All the President's Men, 1976, JFK, 1991, and The Constant Gardener, 2005. Jordan King at Empire questioned whether Brave New World would live up to these comparisons, but said it was a promising sign that the film was looking to place itself in conversation with those previous films. Marvel Studios partnered with Tide's Collateral Stains promotional campaign to release a series of commercials for the film in January 2025. These feature Greg Turkington reprising his role of Baskin-Robbins store manager Dale from the MCU films Ant-Man, 2015, and Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, 2023. For the 3 weeks leading up to the film's premiere, Disney was said to be making a final and biggest marketing push for IATA press event in Italy at the end of January. Mackie said Captain America represented values like honor, dignity, and integrity rather than America itself. He received backlash from some online commenters who labeled the film anti-American and woke. Mackie soon added, "I'm a proud American, and taking on the shield of a hero like Cap is the honor of a lifetime. Cap has universal characteristics that people all over the world can relate to." James Hibbard of The Hollywood Reporter said Evans made similar statements when playing the character, and the actors were likely directed by Marvel to focus on Captain America's universal qualities to avoid any jingoistic connotations while promoting internationally. Hibbard also discussed the film's other controversies, similarities between Thaddeus Ross and the newly re-elected President Donald Trump, the original New World Order subtitle, opposing views on the inclusion and portrayal of Ruth Batsaref, and ugly criticisms related to Mackie being black, but said these did not appear to have impacted the film's box office performance based on early projection. Coinciding with the film's release in February, concept art by Maynarding of the film's Captain America costume and design for Red Hulk were used as variant covers for Marvel Comics' Sam Wilson, Captain America #2, and Red Hulk #1. Captain America Brave New World premiered at the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood, Los Angeles, on February 11, 2025, and was released in the United States on February 14, 2025, in IMAX. Originally scheduled for release on May 3, 2024, then delayed to July 26, 2024, the film's release was further pushed to February 2025 due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike. It is a part of Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. Reception. Box office. As of February 17, 2025, Captain America Brave New World has grossed $100 million in the United States and Canada, and $92.4 million in other territories, totaling $192.4 million globally. The film is reported to need $425 million worldwide to break even. In the United States and Canada, the film was released alongside Paddington in Peru. Initially projected to gross between $80 to $94 million from 4,105 theaters over its 4-day opening weekend, tracking service Quorum forecasted an opening of $86 to $95 million. This was similar to the $95 million opening weekend of Captain America, The Winter Soldier in 2014. By mid-January 2025, further tracking indicated at least $90 million for the opening weekend. The film earned $40 million on its opening day, including $12 million from Thursday previews. It ended its opening weekend with $88.5 million, reaching a total of $100 million over the 4-day period, topping the box office. Internationally, the film earned $92.4 million from 52 overseas markets in its opening weekend. The top 5 international markets were China, $10.5 million, the UK, $8.5 million, Mexico, $6.6 million, Korea, $5.6 million, and France, $4.7 million. Critical response. On Rotten Tomatoes, Captain America: Brave New World received a 50% approval rating based on 256 critics' reviews, with an average score of 5.5/10. The critical consensus reads, Anthony Mackie capably takes up Cap's mantle and shield, but Brave New World is too routine and overstuffed with uninteresting Easter eggs to feel like a worthy standalone adventure for this new Avengers leader. Early reviews were mixed, with some critics finding the film to be a bit too self-serious without packing a real political punch, though they acknowledged its exciting action and strong performances. On Metacritic, the film received a score of 42 out of 100, indicating mixed or average reviews, based on the opinions of 53 critics. Audience reception was lukewarm as well, with CinemaScore giving the film a B grade, the lowest for an MCU film, and Post-Track reporting an average rating of 3 out of 5 stars. The film's political themes sparked debate among critics. The Hollywood Reporter noted that a scene where General Ross transforms into Red Hulk and causes havoc across Washington, D.C. felt reminiscent of former U.S. President Donald Trump, while IndieWire drew a parallel between Ross and Trump as gruff old men elevated to office based on the promise of unity against an alien threat. The Independent argued that while Ross could be seen as a Trump-like character, the film never fully embraced a political stance, leaving many subplots underdeveloped. Rolling Stone joked that Ross was somehow still only the second most destructive, rage-filled commander-in-chief to ever hold office, while Entertainment Weekly humorously noted that the most unbelievable aspect of the film was the presence of a U.S. president with empathy and responsibility. Characterization and narrative choices also drew criticism. Screen Rant pointed out that Sam Wilson's costume change from white to blue seemed more like a merchandising tactic than a meaningful narrative development. The New York Times described this as the film's tendency to feel like an action figure commercial. Vulture criticized the film for lacking sincerity, describing it as a giant slot machine with weak humor and phony emotional moments. The Wrap found the film lacking emotional depth, with moments of connection feeling rehashed from The Falcon and The Winter Soldier. RogerEbert.com claimed that Wilson's character was reduced to a magical Negro trope designed to appease white audiences. Collider panned the dialogue, calling it some of the worst in the MCU, and criticized the film's disjointed nature, attributing this to reshoots. The performances of the cast received mixed reviews. Entertainment Weekly praised Harrison Ford's portrayal of Red Hulk, noting his gravitas and twinkle in his eye, but The Independent felt that Mackie's portrayal of Wilson lacked depth, reducing the character to a blandly heroic punching machine, despite his acting talent. Visually, critics were polarized. The New York Post described the White House fight scene as cheap and cheesy in terms of its animation, while Collider criticized the CGI, comparing it unfavorably to the 2008 film The Incredible Hulk. Vulture's Bilge Ebbery found the visual effects in the action sequences lifeless and tiresome. The New York Times deemed the visuals garish and slapdash, while The Wrap found them drab and unfinished. However, both RogerEbert.com and Screen Rant praised the CGI for Red Hulk, though Screen Rant noted that the cherry blossom scenes were a green screen mess. In sum, the film received a divided response with particular criticisms, focused on its narrative, visuals, and the lack of genuine emotional engagement, despite Mackie's strong performance and some positive reviews for Harrison Ford's portrayal. Future. In January 2025, Anthony Mackie expressed his desire to continue portraying Sam Wilson, aka Captain America, for the next 10 years. He expressed optimism about the possibility of starring in another Captain America film after his roles in the upcoming Avengers movies. Avengers: Doomsday, 2026, and Avengers: Secret Wars, 2027. Mackie's commitment suggests that he is eager to further explore the character's journey in the MCU, potentially continuing his leadership within the Avengers. He new man behind the Captain America shield is Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie. And while a black Captain America is likely to enrage all the right people, there's little else to recommend this unengaging placeholder installment in the interminable Marvel saga. Sam is still finding his vibranium-reinforced wings, with wisecracking sidekick Joaquin, Danny Ramirez, providing support. In the aftermath of the global catastrophe that saw half the world's population wiped out, Sam has cautiously decided to throw his helmet in with the U.S. government, led by controversial new Commander-in-Chief, President Thaddeus Ross, Harrison Ford. But shadowy forces are working against Ross's proposed global accord. It's a humorless drag of a picture, over-reliant on clunky exposition and naive geopolitical posturing. Plus it's ugly, with a greasy murkiness that looks as though the lens was smeared with lard. The good news: Captain America: Brave New World is absolutely one of the better entries in the recent spate of MCU films. Now, this is absolutely damning with faint praise. One could generously claim that Marvel has been batting .500 at best over the last 10 to 12 movies, with some huge stumbles. I'm Looking at You, Thor, Love and Thunder and Quantumania, peppered in with other entries that ranged from pretty okay, The Marvels, Shang-Chi, to damn good fun, even if not great, Deadpool and Wolverine, to almost great, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Wakanda Forever. The point is, it's the mother of all mixed bags these days. It's not just Marvel fatigue either. Some of these entries have just been flat-out bad movies, no matter the phase in which they were released. Disney and Marvel have lost the magic that they had up until Avengers Endgame, and they've been scrambling to find it again. Therein lies the bad news about Brave New World. It doesn't have the magic. It's got a lot of good parts. Anthony Mackie is growing nicely into his mantle of Sam Wilson / the new Captain America and brings a unique spin on the character. They're not shying away from the challenges that come with a black hero in America, and this is bolstered by a great supporting performance by Carl Lumbly, returning from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series as Isaiah Bradley, the wrongfully imprisoned and tortured subject of the government's prior efforts to recreate the super soldier serum. Sam's new sidekick, the new Falcon, Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres, is also a fun addition to the mix, and with Harrison Ford chewing his way through his scenes as President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, taking over for the sadly deceased William Hurt, there's a solid foundation. Yet, things don't always click. The plot: a messy bowl of spaghetti that involves Wilson and Ross butting heads over the divide between superpowered individuals and the USA, as well as the discovery of a valuable new resource and a secretive villain pulling strings behind the scenes. Tries very hard to be compelling, and sometimes it works. But it works more like an off-brand Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which is tough given that that entry is renowned as one of the best Marvel has ever made. It does a respectable job of making the story a mystery to be solved, and Sam and Joaquin, and eventually diminutive ass-kicker Shira Haas as former widow Ruth Batseraph, following the clues is entertaining. Unfortunately, the mystery isn't particularly intriguing. Its solution is badly telegraphed, and the machinations themselves are riddled with plot holes. When things pick up and we get into the action side of things, the film is damn good. There's some great choreography and flight combat is terrific. Extra points for 66-year-old Giancarlo Esposito as the ruthless mercenary sidewinder, who gets to do a good bit of violence himself. Obviously, everyone has seen the Red Hulk in the trailers, and the explanation for his appearance makes decent enough sense. He's fun for the 15 minutes he's in the film. In the end, the script is what ultimately drags the film down. Director Julius Onah does an adequate job, but it's a clumsy and uneven effort. It frequently tries to cram a few too many pieces in, whether it be its abundance of villains, its shower of red herrings, or its excessive ancillary characters. Perhaps the greatest sin is that Brave New World also drowns the audience in exposition, with whole scenes designed just to explain things to the audience as if we're idiots. Thankfully, it doesn't try to shoehorn too many plot elements designed to tie into future films, something that has often bogged down Marvel films. It does, however, have several unexpected callbacks to prior films, from Eternals to The Incredible Hulk, though nothing too distracting. It's also mercifully not too long, coming in a hair under 2 hours, for which we can all be thankful. Is it worth seeing? Sure. It's entertaining enough for a couple of hours, filled with some fun dialogue, exciting action, and a solid set of characters. Mackie carries the mantle ably enough, and I'm happy to see him continue to do so, along with the cast of characters that are being assembled alongside him. I only hope that next time there's a script worthy of him and the character. The MCU never really got over Endgame, let's be honest. With 22 films, all working towards a single, endgame. Its rich tapestry of interweaved storylines and intricately plotted character beats was a marvel, of modern cinema. But whilst many have bemoaned the lack of similar narrative cohesion in everything that has followed, it's been the loss of two of the rosters of mainstays that have perhaps loomed largest and loudest. No one was foolish enough to follow Robert Downey Jr., except the man himself. More on that in Doomsday. But Chris Evans handed the shield over and a new Cap was born, with Anthony Mackie taking over the toughest gig in the MCU. And following a critically mauled and divisive first outing in Disney Plus' The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Mackie finally gets his first big screen outing, not helped one bit by a seemingly never-ending stream of production troubles played out across a legion of YouTubers' gleeful and malicious video streams. And despite the rumors of reshoot after reshoot, cast members coming Giancarlo Esposito and going WWE star Seth Rollins very loudly and grumpily, Julius Onah's long-awaited film finally arrives in a blaze of disappointingly spoilerific marketing. But is it actually any good? Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, Harrison Ford stepping into the sadly departed William Hurt's shoes, is the new president of the United States. Realizing his checkered past with superhumans may have been somewhat misjudged, he is keen to re-enlist Sam Wilson, the similarly newly anointed Captain America, Anthony Mackie, to help rebuild the Avengers. However, there's a tricky issue of global politicking to contend with first. The discovery of adamantium in the remnants of the celestial left over from the Eternals. With every country in the world after the new vibranium, Ross is trying to engineer an accord whereby all can benefit from such a discovery. Yet an assassination attempt on his life at the unveiling of the accords prompts Wilson and his new wingman, Danny Ramirez, to delve into the mystery of who's behind it when one of his old friends is implicated. Firstly, any implication that this follows in the footsteps of previous Cap films, especially The Winter Soldier, are way off the mark. This may think it's a grounded political thriller, but it's nothing of the sort. Its clunky narrative around the mystery behind the torpedoing of a global peace treaty handled with little subtlety or sophistication. Its first half likely bears the majority of the scars of those alleged behind-the-scenes problems, with a patchworked series of pseudoscientific reveals dragging our heroes from point A to point B, occasionally broken up by an action beat or two that very soon start to feel as labored as the storyline thanks to Wilson's distinctly non-superhuman abilities. It's fine, but it's thuggishly unexceptional and more than a little vanilla. Despite all of its readily apparent flaws, Brave New World exceeded admittedly low expectations. What's missing here, apparent from the opening scenes, is the MCU special sauce, the superb character work and their wonderful interactions, laced with sizzling dialogue and a sly sense of humor that easily saw fans through even the laziest of plots in previous films. In almost all of these, we had multiple characters and multiple stars with planet-sized charisma engaging us on a real emotional level. And yet here, there's scant evidence of this. Mackie's elevation from superhero sidekick to bona fide superhero hasn't worked. Not when his Cap is riddled with self-doubt and the tone of the film robs him of most of his natural ebullience. But even with this, Mackie's new wingman simply isn't up to the task of creating that magical sense of camaraderie. Nothing against Ramirez's performance, but his character is written as an annoying facsimile of an earlier Sam, their interactions lacking any of the fizzing dialogue and easy charm of previous double acts. And it's here that the film really struggles. It simply doesn't feel much like an MCU film. It's also not helped by a horribly anonymous soundtrack, lacking any of the themes or even the same tonal grandeur of soundtracks past. Not every film needs an armada of heroes to lead it, but even the individual films of earlier phases had at least a double act for the ages, an emotional and magnetic pairing to anchor the whole thing. Think Cap and Natasha in Winter Soldier, Thor and Loki and everything. Even Tony eventually played nice with the likes of Rhodey, and even Harley Keener admitted Iron Man 3 is the best Iron Man. And it's this beating heart that's missing here. Mackie and Ramirez simply not given the opportunity to hit such lofty heights with an at times painful script and a narrative more concerned with doing something than being something. It would be churlish to simply say that Mackie is still just a sidekick, but that's almost exactly as he's written, never once feeling like he's graduated to what Cap was and stood for, a strong sense of righteousness when all around were failing with theirs. Yes, he's not Steve Rogers, but he's also not given chance to be anything different or to find who he wants to be, as all he's doing is delivering plot machination after plot machination. However, the film does have a secret weapon. Harrison Ford, notoriously grumpy and painfully one-note when asked to do anything he simply doesn't want to do, is an absolute blast as Ross. Capturing the duplicity of the character, the mystery, the shadow looming over and in him, every time he's on screen, the film starts to fizz like the MCU classics of old. Whether it's barking orders at his head of security, the underused but brimming with potential Ruth Bat-Seraph, Shira Haas, bickering with his personal bodyguard Xosha Roquemore, or desperately trying to make amends with his estranged daughter, Ford is in prime Ford mode here. And even with the marketing fully ruining the reveal of the character's not-so-hidden secret, he is the beating heart of the film. He's also, albeit virtually, at the core of the final act, a really satisfying set piece that finally got the superhero juices flowing and the sense that the MCU hasn't completely forgotten how to just be the MCU. There are some nice nods and setups to the wider universe which don't fall into lazy fan service, and the post-credits stinger feels like a glorious reminder of those in the early days of the MCU, little more than a tantalizing tease of something looming, something very promising indeed. Despite all of its readily apparent flaws, Brave New World exceeded admittedly low expectations. Its plotting and its storyline feel disjointed yet serviceable, but with a superb Ford and a thunderously well put together and emotionally satisfying final act, it manages to just about keep the MCU's Phase 5 above water. But it's now critical that better has to come soon. Captain America. Brave New World is in UK cinemas now. Brave New World does not care about Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson has enough charisma and personality to carry a Captain America movie. When the camera is set on Wilson navigating life on his own or sharing amusing moments with the youthful Danny Ramirez as the Falcon, the film is at its best. There's room for discussion about the potential significance of a black and Mexican man taking up the mantles of beloved Avengers. But Brave New World truly doesn't have a clear vision for its lead. The same thing happened when the writers on The Falcon and the Winter Soldier put Sam in a corner until it was time for him to resolve a gray area situation with an immaterial speech to senators to be better. That's the same Sam that winds up here. Not the one who went up against the government alongside Steve Rogers or stood up for himself against the system that still wants to treat Captain America like the dancing USO monkey he was in the first Avenger. Wilson faces much flack throughout from his adversaries, the booming Ross and his bland former Black Widow, but still Israeli, second-in-command Ruth Bat-Seraph, Shira Haas. Frustratingly enough, he takes it in stride, willing to do his captain duties and hardly pushing back against the powers that be. Screenwriters Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, Dalan Musson, Julius Onah, Peter Glanz, LOL, 5 dudes, sideline the titular character to the point where he's a non-participant in his own story. Brave New World is desperate to avoid the critical racial or American themes that were central to every Captain America and to black-led entries like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Black Panther in the interest of appealing to centrist and conservative viewers and longtime Marvel acolytes. Everyone but the black demographic that actually wants to see a black Captain America movie. All matters pertaining to race, including the controversial Ruth, are swept under the rug in an act of utter cowardice, with no regard for Sam or Captain America's significance in an I do not see color manner. This is infuriating, especially given the fact that the film uses Kendrick Lamar's deeply political song, I, from his very Black on Main album To Pimp a Butterfly, in the end credits for brownie points. Remember? Black. Oops, all Incredible Hulk sequels. Hey, do you give a shit about any of the characters of the Incredible Hulk? Not Bruce Banner. I'm talking about Thaddeus Ross, Betty Ross, Liv Tyler, and Samuel Stearns. Given that the plot hinges so much on the events of the Incredible Hulk and the Diet Winter Soldier espionage plot Sam is thrust into, it is crazy that Brave New World tries to shroud its antagonist in mystery when it's like, bitch, we know because of the one movie you're forcing us to remember with every line of dialogue whenever Harrison Ford is on screen. The movie is actively so desperate to cling onto the relevancy of its own failing legacy that it reaches far beyond what remains in the Marvel toy box. It is so disconnected from what audiences want. It thinks that resolving the loose ends of a 2008 movie in 2025 warrants a full theatrical feature. It feels like a setup and a disservice to Mackie and even Ramirez because if the film doesn't do well, at least in Trump's America, the blame falls on the black lead and not the executive powers that crammed a Hulk movie into a Captain America. No? Well, too bad. That's what you're hoodwinked into watching, but with Captain America at the epicenter. From the beginning, Brave New World, the 35th entry into the MCU, has to beg you to care about events from their second movie, which the studio itself did not even acknowledge until Civil War, the 13th entry, nearly a decade later. Harrison Ford is forced to refer to events from movies he didn't even star in every single moment he is on screen. When he's not doing that, he's testing the viewer's attention span, reciting what's happening in the plot with the same energy as "we're going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu," or wondering aloud when Liv Tyler is going to show up so that when she inevitably does, one loser in the audience can cheer. Reshoot, this stinks, man. It is no secret that Brave New World was one of the messiest production affairs in MCU history due to the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes and extensive reshoots to shoehorn Giancarlo Esposito into the story. The sloppiest entry out of all the movies is the result. There have been reshoots before, but this one is like Sony Marvel level quality of atrocious. The final cut makes it all the more glaring that director Julius Onah's good filmmaker watch loose, direction lacks basic continuity in the action sequences, and the editing is so sloppy you can tell where reshoots began and ended. Feels like I'm repeating myself from my Love Hurts review when I say, this plays like an assembly cut. Brave New World looks and is structured like a straight-to-Disney Plus feature with shoddy, telegraphed cinematography and filmmaking. I got secondhand embarrassment while sitting in my IMAX theater. Brave New World takes us back to Bush-era militaristic propaganda. Whereas there's no room for commentary about a heroic black man's relationship to the U.S. government, there is a constant pro-militaristic propaganda imagery. Sam works with military officials throughout, even befriending a generic commander and plot device, Dennis Dunphy, William Mark McCullough. Wilson's background in the forces is the only aspect the writers chose to highlight, and only ever depict them in a positive light, harking back to the post-9/11 era that had the screenplays of Iron Man and Iron Man 2 in an iron grip. But this time the subliminal messaging is, salute our troops. Work with corrupt leaders even if that same government tortured your friend, put him in prison, and is about to give him a death sentence. Don't let those red flags get you down. Become a plant for the red, white, and blue. Even if the war criminal leader is a Red Hulk, he is still a redeemable man. Fuck you for thinking otherwise. Final thoughts. Fueled by nostalgia and American nationalism, Captain America. Brave New World is an alienating disgrace that actively disrespects its lead for a directionless, if not the poorest, attempt for the MCU to cling onto its own relevancy. The Manchurian Candidate story was already done in the MCU. Feels like a retread here. Stearns uses mobile devices to trigger mind control over whatever victim he needs. It's overused, and since he has the ability to seemingly do this to anyone, he never uses it against his most obvious foes, like Sam. This diminishes him as an antagonist. Remember, his power is supreme intelligence and calculations that effectively make him an oracle of sorts. His arc boils down to exposing Ross for what he is, a simple revenge plot at its core. We get a cameo from Bucky after Joaquin is injured. This is the first of two scenes where we get vulnerable Sam, and it works for me. These actors have great chemistry, and even though I don't agree with the conclusion of the conversation, we finally see a different side of Sam. We quickly get back to overly stoic, can't-fail Sam, which has been a problematic theme in the post-Phase 3 MCU. The script fails the most here. Sam doesn't change throughout this movie because he isn't forced to. His convictions about not taking the serum are touched on but not actually explained. When you have an antagonist that doesn't face true adversity or is forced to change from the journey, the plot just happens. Today's Hollywood writers struggle with this. They write events and then fill in the blanks so those events just occur. It doesn't feel organic, and events don't happen due to causation, which would naturally drive the plot forward. This film suffers from this syndrome. No matter what scenario the plot puts Sam in, his literal plot armor does whatever the plot needs it to do. This degrades Sam as Captain America. The suit can be a shield, do a sonic clap, or shoot knives. It has the MCU default nanotech helmet and is made of vibranium. It also gives him enhanced abilities for whatever Sam needs to do. Need super strength? Check. Need to charge up a wing for a super kinetic attack? Sure. Need to shoot some wing knives? Yup. All of this culminates in a rushed third act versus the Red Hulk. Stearns, after having his plot foiled, turns himself in to expose Ross. Ross is finally triggered into Red Hulk, and what you saw in TV spots and trailers is most of it. Sam finally knocks Red Hulk down, but he gets up. This prompts Sam to talk Ross down by telling him he has good in him and reminding him about Betty. Ross and Stearns get sent to the raft, and Sam visits Ross to give him credit for taking responsibility for his actions. It honestly makes no sense and leaves the film with no true bad guy. Once again, we get the victim and the misunderstood antagonists. Ross is even rewarded with a visit from Betty. I was left with the message that, well, you did all of these mostly bad things, but you had a noble thought, so I guess you're okay. The writing is so clueless it doesn't realize his one noble thought is still based on selfishness. He wants to repair his relationship with his daughter. I won't say this is the worst MCU movie I've ever seen. It's not on the level of Eternals or the Marvels, but as the fourth Captain America movie, it doesn't come close in themes, character development, stakes, or execution compared to its predecessors. The character interactions are shot like a TV show. There are too many close-up shots that make the viewing experience disjointed as you switch to wide-shot action sequences you would expect from an MCU film. Protagonists and antagonists can only be as smart as the writers, and the writing fails this movie far too often to be good. It's been a while since I've properly watched a Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, movie. I skipped over Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, partly due to its COVID-era release and partly due to my lack of interest in seeing Jonathan Majors awkwardly ham it up. I skipped the Marvels because as much as I love Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan, I'm not partial to Brie Larson's Carol Danvers. However, the MCU's tease of maybe including Deadpool one day after Deadpool and Wolverine and the many hours I've played of Marvel Rivals have pumped me up for more superhero actions. I'm a Painey Main, by the way. Given the personal distaste for Majors and Larson I shared, I can understand if longtime Marvel fans are apprehensive about watching a Captain America film without Chris Evans. Anthony Mackie has some big shoes to fill now that he's inherited the mantle Captain America. Brave New World finds Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie, firmly established no longer as Falcon but as Captain America and doing his best to serve his country in a world where the Avengers have been disbanded. After the controversial Hulk-hunting General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, Harrison Ford, is elected President of the United States, he pushes for an international treaty regulating the harvest of the new, to the MCU, supermetal adamantium. When Ross is the subject of an assassination attempt that implicates his friend and former Captain America Isaiah Bradley, Carl Lumbly, Sam takes matters into his own hands to investigate the deeper conspiracy that threatens to result in war and a new colonization race. Despite ostensibly being a movie about Captain America, the plot never truly focuses entirely on Sam. Much like Captain America, Civil War felt like another Avengers movie. Brave New World is more of a sequel to the 2008 The Incredible Hulk and 2021's Eternals. It's great to see characters and plot points from the often overlooked Hulk, which I really enjoyed, resurface, and the MCU finally addresses the events of Eternals, which saw a giant celestial emerge from the Indian Ocean and almost destroy the planet. It's interesting to me that the MCU is using Eternals to introduce adamantium and the X-Men, with the corpse of Tiamat, the Celestial, being the source of the metal on Earth. Unfortunately, this all comes at the cost of Sam's story, and, like with the movies of MCU Phase 1, it feels like this movie and the characters are just a vehicle to set up a new Avengers storyline. It's not Sam's story. He's just along for the ride. Marvel is still struggling to escape the shadow of Steve Rogers and Chris Evans. While I thought the whole point of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show was to hand the title of Captain America to Sam Wilson definitively and to allay his doubts that he is the man for the job, he goes back to dwelling on it in the film. I assume that by now, Marvel wants us to move forward and accept Sam as the bearer of the iconic shield. But how are we supposed to do that if they keep bringing up the past? The best part of Captain America, Brave New World, is the characters, played by an immensely talented and passionate cast. It's easy to write off superhero films as merely popcorn flicks that exist only for spectacle and not for substance. Still, the cast does a commendable job of bringing significant emotional weight to the story. Though we got a taste of what Mackie brings to the role through his previous MCU appearances, especially in The Falcon and The Winter Soldier, this is really Mackie's first chance to claim the mantle of Captain America, especially for audience members who may not have Disney Plus or just were not interested in the show. Mackie's Captain America shares many traits that Evans brought to the role, such as an unshakable sense of justice, dogged determination, and the ability to inspire others. However, Mackie can also make Sam seem more human and relatable than Steve Rogers was. As iconic and almost synonymous as Rogers is to the Captain America mantle, much of his story was tied to the serum that granted him his superhuman abilities. Sam Wilson doesn't have that, and though he does possess advanced tools and weaponry, he's still only a human in a suit trying to make a difference. Whether by the nature of this fact or Sam's added layer of doubt and struggle without taking the serum, he feels more plausible and relatable as a hero, reinforcing the idea that anyone could be a hero like Captain America. He's charming, optimistic, and human and carries a real sense of hope throughout the movie. He's a lot more fallible, so even though he's not stopping an alien invasion, it makes his victories seem all the more significant. Harrison Ford's portrayal of President Thaddeus Ross is likely one of the film's biggest draws for pop culture enthusiasts like me. Many of us jonesing for more Harrison after Troy Baker's impeccable impressions of his younger self in the recent Indiana Jones video game. Ross's character arc in Captain America: Brave New World is one of redemption. Though audiences may associate the character with the blustery, shoot first and ask questions later attitude portrayed by the late William Hurt, Ford's take on the character is calmer and more calculated in his approach. At this stage in his life, Ross is motivated by his estrangement from his daughter Betty, Liv Tyler, after his obsessive quest to capture the Hulk, and seeks to show her that he has changed for the better. Ford is able to easily portray all these emotions, from the charismatic politician to the desperate and emotionally wounded father to the leader genuinely seeking peace and a redeemed legacy. Then, at once, the simmering rage and conniving manipulation hiding under the surface make you question his motivations and whether he really has changed. In other words, the role is a successful redemption from Dial of Destiny. Also along for the ride at Cap's side are the new Falcon Joaquin Torres, Danny Ramirez, Ross's Black Widow-trained head of security Ruth Batsarif, Shira Haas, and Carl Lumbly's Isaiah Bradley. Ramirez matches Mackie's upbeat energy with a chipper and irrelevant exuberance as the comic relief sidekick. Haas's Ruth is a much more focused and taciturn role, which fits the character, though we do get glimpses of cheekiness and snarkiness that hopefully develop more if we see her in future films. Lumbly, though, shines as the heart and emotional center of the film. As was revealed in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Bradley was the first Captain America, but rather than gain the accolades that were given to Rogers, he was hushed up, experimented on, and locked away by the very government he served. In Captain America: Brave New World, we see Bradley trying to pick up the pieces of the life he has left, making connections with people who respect him and finally seeming to get the public recognition he deserves, only for it to be wrongfully snatched away from him. The injustice of it all, with the tender and broken yet dignified air that Lumbly imbues in the character, is very moving. Asterisk, please note, this next paragraph is a minor spoiler, so skip over it if you'd like. For those of us who have seen and remember The Incredible Hulk, the reveal that Tim Blake Nelson's Samuel Stearns, aka Mr. Blue, is the villain is a bit telegraphed. However, it makes sense as a tie-in to the Red Hulk storyline. Unfortunately, there isn't much payoff beyond the reveal of his gruesomely mutated head. As a villain who bases his plans on percentages and likelihoods of specific calculated outcomes, he's overcome very easily as his plans go awry, and he doesn't do much in the film besides randomly showing up places or talking to the characters through phones or radios. Nelson is normally a fine actor, but he's incredibly bland here. I suspect this is due to the script and character not having much room for exploration. In many ways, his character makes this Captain America film feel like another rehash of the last one. An angry, evil scientist/genius that was wronged and hidden away in a secret base by the United States government enacts an evil plot that Cap then foils. The only real difference is that Stearns stands in for Zola and Baron Zemo here, except he has even less to do. Giancarlo Esposito also portrays a minor villain as the hired gun, Sidewinder. Esposito channels a bit of his Gus Fring energy again with Sidewinder's matter-of-fact malice and straightforward evil, which serves the plot but doesn't make him very memorable. Knowing how good a villain he can be, this role shamefully wastes Esposito's talent. Regarding action sequences, the bread and butter of superhero films, Captain America: Brave New World, is a mixed bag that averages out to be just okay. Considering how action films in recent years like John Wick, Sisu, Nobody and Love Hurts have raised the bar for crisp cinematography and inventive fight choreography, it's disappointing to see that Marvel hasn't progressed beyond nauseatingly shaky camera movement and rapid jump cuts to attempt to convey a sense of dynamism and energy in their fights. The film fares much better with its CGI-focused action sequences. An aerial dogfight pitting Cap and Falcon against military jets has plenty of tension and excitement that, while feeling a little similar to other film scenes of aerial combat, still manages to retain a unique flair. The highly teased climactic fight between Captain America and the Red Hulk is full of destructive spectacle. Though ultimately it feels a little too short, it is just as enjoyable as I expected. Captain America. Brave New World story flounders because it doesn't seem brave enough to let Sam have his own story as Captain America. While in the complexly interconnected world of the MCU, it's expected to have tie-ins, callbacks, and some level of setup for future projects. That's all the movies seem to be. On the positive side, the film is still a very good time at the theater. For the most part, the action sequences are exciting and offer plenty of visual flair. Strong performances carry the whole project from Mackie, Ford, and Lumbly, and the proper balance of fun jokes with gravitas. If this were the final test to see if Mackie could shoulder the responsibility of being Captain America, then he would have more than earned his wings. Marvel's latest offering sees Captain America in his fourth cinematic outing and first for Anthony Mackie after the passing of the torch from Chris Evans. But does it fly or fall? Directed by Julius Onah, Captain America. Brave New World follows Sam Wilson / Captain America, Anthony Mackie. In the wake of Thaddeus Ross, Harrison Ford, becoming president, Sam finds himself at the center of an international incident and must work to stop the true masterminds behind it. Now I know that feels like a simple premise, and it is. The film definitely feels like it is. Trying to recapture the feeling of Captain America, the Winter Soldier with the espionage mystery plot. And it gives it a decent go with a fairly plain, grounded and contained story that is slightly plagued by too much revealed in the trailers and some wasted plot points. Anthony Mackie as Sam has a decent arc as Cap, becoming less cocky and a bit more towards the earnestness of Steve but in his own way. I'm quietly optimistic about this passing of the torch and a bit excited to see this version of Cap facing bigger things and being a leader in the Avengers. Assuming he's going to stick around after the more than likely universe reset after the next couple of Avengers films. A massive standout for me is Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, an aging super soldier. Introduced in the Falcon and Winter Soldier Disney Plus show, the character is a big emotional core in the movie and Lumbly delivers a performance full of heart, intensity, and endearing humor. Danny Ramirez as the new Falcon Joaquin Torres is great. A delightful presence that has that Peter Parker-like eagerness but definitely makes it his own. Harrison Ford replaces the late William Hurt as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross in a performance full of gravitas and intention. The character gets a little shortchanged towards the end though, and I would have liked a little more out of him in this outing. Surprisingly, I also felt there were a couple earned and tasteful cameos, which is rare these days. As for gripes, I found it obvious the lack of theme music, or at least if there was, it wasn't a recognizable riff. There's something about the early half of Marvel releases, particularly Captain America, that had such amazing swelling themes that was really missing here. I also thought the fights were kind of boring and the hits looked soft. I know Sam doesn't have the super soldier serum, but you can at least have him put his weight behind a kick or two. This film was also plagued by multiple reshoots, and it definitely shows. Some of the most horrific green screen you'll see, and almost an entire villain plot being tossed to the side. Don't get me wrong, they're certainly not why people are going to see the movie, but if you're going to include something, you need to make it count. And I did find myself sort of just waiting to see where this movie fits into the wider MCU of it all. I know that could just be a me thing, but particularly with the multiverse saga, it feels like I'm always trying to find or waiting to see the connections to the wider story rather than just letting them come at me organically. Hopefully after the next Avengers movies it'll go back to a more natural build to a big intertwined event film. There's also one post-credits scene which I reckon you can definitely skip if you want to. It's just more a reminder of what's to come. So overall there's some enjoyable performances and characters placed into a bit of a stunted plot. A good first cinematic outing for Sam Wilson's Captain America in regard to coming into his own, but little more beyond that. Though it is a recommendation, I of course encourage you to get out and make your own opinion. As a cog in the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe machine, Captain America: Brave New World is arguably more important than any other movie Marvel Studios will release this year. It's the fourth overall Captain America movie, but it's the first time Chris Evans' Steve Rogers isn't the one lifting the shield. Instead, it's Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson, who was bequeathed the red, white, and blue shield at the end of Avengers Endgame and wrestled with its significance in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, Sam emerges as a fully realized Captain America, complete with his own iteration of the Falcon in Joaquin Torres, Danny Ramirez, just in time for the election of President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, played by Harrison Ford, after the passing of William Hurt. However, when forgotten Captain America Isaiah Bradley, Carl Lumbly, gets caught up in an assassination attempt against the president, Sam begins investigating Ross and those around him and discovers there's an evil mastermind bent on revenge pulling the strings. All told, Brave New World feels a bit like it's ripping off past Captain America movies, all while retreading much of the same thematic storylines already explored with Sam in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. One of the strengths of Captain America has always been his care for other people, and while Sam Wilson continues that through line, he often takes a back seat to Ford's Ross when it comes to actual character development in the movie. All of which would be fine if Brave New World was at least fun and entertaining, which it simply isn't. Captain America: Brave New World is a bleak retread of past MCU movies. It's clear Captain America: Brave New World is trying to recapture what was so great about previous Captain America movies, adopting the spy thriller tone of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, while telling a globe-trotting story like Captain America: Civil War, and a story of soldiers at war like Captain America: The First Avenger. But even in a movie where Steve Rogers discovers his best friend has been turned into a brainwashed weapon by his enemies, Marvel always managed to balance the seriousness of their storytelling with a level of fun and entertainment. Brave New World has very little to enjoy about it. Brave New World exists to be a Captain America Marvel movie, but it stripped the series and the characters of everything that makes them great. The film plods through the requisite Marvel movie beats with little flair and even less concern about whether it all serves the story of the film or its characters. There's an action set piece early in the movie because that's how Marvel movies start. There's a switch from Sam's white Captain America costume to a new, more navy blue suit for exactly zero reason other than Marvel heroes need to get new suits to sell toys. Brave New World exists to be a Captain America Marvel movie, but it stripped the series and the characters of everything that makes them great. All that's left is a Marvel movie in the strictest sense, with the standard CGI-heavy action scenes and ties to the larger MCU. Frankly, the fact that a Captain America movie has CGI-heavy action scenes should tell you all you need to know. Sam Wilson is undoubtedly a different kind of Captain America than Steve Rogers, though the MCU seems to only remember this when it comes to utilizing his wings in the film's admittedly entertaining action sequences. Otherwise, Marvel has made Sam little more than a retread of Steve, albeit with a different cast of characters around him. Captain America: Brave New World has a phenomenal cast who try to salvage the movie. For what it's worth, Mackie brings a great deal of charm to the role of Sam Wilson, but the character is still muted and reserved to the point of being boring, especially when compared to the bombastic personality of Mackie himself. It's a difficult needle to thread, ensuring that Sam stays true to the character who's been in the MCU for over a decade now, while bringing him into the spotlight and making him the lead. But rather than amplify what made Sam so loved in past appearances, Brave New World makes the new Captain America a flat character with no development. I wanted to love Captain America: Brave New World, but I was barely entertained by it. Much of the movie's character development is actually given to Ford's President Ross, who is struggling with his desire to be a better person and the angry nature he had leaned on for so long. For his part, Ford is excellent, turning in a performance that brings plenty of heart to the movie. Plus, when he does inevitably turn into the Red Hulk, he plays the rampaging president very well, and the CGI on the new Hulk is extremely well done, even if the backdrop of the cherry blossoms looks like a green screen mess. Unfortunately, Brave New World represents a lot of what's wrong with the MCU post-Endgame, even as you can tell that Marvel is trying to learn lessons from past mistakes. The overt seriousness and bleakness saps the movie of any enjoyment we might get from watching a new Captain America movie. I am a huge Captain America fan and I found very little to like in this new film. To say that's disappointing is an understatement. I wanted to love Captain America, Brave New World, but I was barely entertained by it. As much as I love the great crossovers and event films that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I will always have a particular affection for the era of the franchise dubbed Phase 2. In the wake of introductions to major characters via origin stories and the first team-up blockbuster, there was a declared ambition to change audiences' perspective of what a comic book movie could be. Tony Stark found himself playing detective trying to solve an explosive neo-noir mystery in Iron Man 3. A special, original flavor of space opera was concocted with the titular Ant-Man entered the MCU via a heist plot, and Steve Rogers uncovered a vast and dangerous conspiracy in the political thriller Captain America, the Winter Soldier. These experiments in genre were crucial to the blossoming canon. That was over a decade ago, however, and now the MCU is in a very different state. There have certainly been successes in the last 5 years, but the overall quality and the output has significantly changed, and there have been some major bumps in the road in the construction of the latest big picture plan. Director Julius Onah's Captain America, Brave New World arrives amid what is described in Deadpool and Wolverine as a bit of a low point for the franchise. And while one might hope that it would be the film that would help right the ship, it's a mission that the blockbuster isn't able to accomplish, mostly because it feels dedicated to providing more of the same without offering even an iota of new, rendering the title unintentionally ironic. It's a movie that feels desperate to capture the energy and intense magic of the aforementioned Captain America, the Winter Soldier, but it's a whiffed effort both in the construction of its story and execution. The 2014 film shocked with its epic, canon-changing twists and dazzled with edge-of-your-seat action. But the latest MCU feature has none of that. Instead, the audience is perpetually way ahead of the characters on plot developments, rendering the pacing deathly slow, and there isn't a single standout set piece, a symptom of uninspired fight choreography and an over-reliance on visual effects. Having accepted the mantle of Captain America following the events of Avengers Endgame and the series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie, is reintroduced to audiences in a new costume leading missions for the United States military, and the film begins with him playing an outsized role in global affairs when he is able to retrieve and return highly valuable materials stolen from the Japanese. What makes Sam Wilson different from Steve Rogers as Captain America is the fact that he is outfitted with a suit that allows him to fly, but his first solo movie not only lacks any interesting aerial cinematography, but feels far too artificial. Whether he's dogfighting with some jets in a war zone or doing battle with Red Hulk in Washington, D.C., photorealism proves not enough to add proper substance. The characters and personalities are the highlights of Captain America, Brave New World. The saving grace of Captain America, Brave New World is its characters. While one may not feel particularly hooked into the plot developments or the action, one at least doesn't mind spending time with the protagonists. Anthony Mackie knows Sam Wilson perfectly at this point, and once again finds the right blend of affable, determined, and emotionally accessible. Harrison Ford gets to play new levels to Thaddeus Ross that William Hurt never got the opportunity to try. That MVP award, however, goes to Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres aka Falcon, who straps into a supersuit for the first time and is a delight. As stale as the movie gets, Ramirez has a charisma that reminds audiences about the energy of the MCU, with which fans originally fell in love. Overall, Captain America, Brave New World is a film that significantly shakes my confidence in the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The canon hit lows in 2023 on both the big screen and the small with Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania and Secret Invasion, but with just a little over a year left until the arrival of the next Avengers blockbuster, namely Avengers Doomsday, I was hopeful that the fourth Captain America movie would be able to set things on a solid path. It doesn't. It's so insistent on trying to recapture the MCU energy of the past that it fails to offer anything fresh, and it represents a wrong direction for the beloved franchise. The torch has been passed. A new figure steps up to the plate to assume an iconic position and become a symbol for the state of things. Director Julius Onah has officially taken the mantle from Jon Watts as the maker of the most personality-free, generic Marvel Cinematic Universe outing to date. We've been stepping out of these with varying levels of disappointment for a while now, 5 years to be specific, and you think we'd be used to it. But the MCU has officially outdone itself with its single worst movie yet. So much so that it makes you crave the other Marvel misfires. For all their menace, the likes of Ant-Man 2 and 3, Captain Marvel, the Marvels, Black Widow, and Thor, Love and Thunder are still functional, passable, and somewhat pleasant. A gag here, an emotional moment there, a cool action set piece there. There was always something. Whereas Captain America, Brave New World isn't just a nothing burger. It's an all-you-can-eat nothing buffet. The tell-don't-show dialogue, the jumpy editing, the stale stunt work, the bafflingly shoddy cinematography, the wafer-thin characters. Every element of Brave New World seems to be competing with each other to be the most ineffective, lifeless, and dull. Except the winner of that one goes to the laughably early 2000s level prosthetics for the leader, Tim Blake Nelson. The laziest, most zero-shits-given attempt at a villain we've come across yet. Brave New World is essentially a sequel to 2008's The Incredible Hulk, but even more so it's a Captain America, the Winter Soldier retread. Entire sequences and scenes from that film are recreated, paid homage to. Here with none of the soul, essence, urgency, or slickness. The opening action scene where Cap is sent on a mission where something isn't quite right, the highway assault, the mysterious secret military base which houses a villain from the past, and even a solemn hospital sequence of watching a character in surgery. The only mildly workable, potentially fun little surprise this film has to offer is the big reveal that Harrison Ford's President Ross becomes the Red Hulk. It's the one thing that could have made sitting through this mildly worthwhile. Except it's hardly a big reveal, and we already knew that due to the tremendously insecure marketing. They clearly knew they had a dud on their hands. The fact that we know where his character ends up is what makes Ross near impossible to invest in as a character from the get-go. And as to whether Red Hulk alone is worth the unfortunate experience of sitting through this movie, he's on screen for exactly 6 minutes. I timed it. Any mildly promising ideas or themes the film wants to explore, Sam taking on the mantle, struggling to live up to the legend, refusing to take the super soldier serum, finding his place as a regular person in a world of superpowers, were looked at far more effectively in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. In comparison to this shoddy content slop of a film, ironically, that series felt like far more of a well-mounted character-driven blockbuster, whereas Brave New World feels like a straight-to-streaming glorified DVD extra. There are fleeting moments in Brave New World where you could see inklings of genuinely promising ideas. Sam trying to find his place in a world of no Avengers, or working with a government he doesn't agree with, or trying to operate with heart and understanding over fisticuffs. It's an interesting idea to build up a character, a symbol over several movies, and have someone else take on that role, to make it their own, to have an audience form a new connection. But this barely salvaged, patchwork-heavy, coherent at best mess of a movie is able to do justice to none of it. They did Sam Wilson dirty. I consider myself an MCU fan, although my interest over the last year has waned. Whether it's superhero fatigue or saltiness over not seeing things on the big screen, keeping up with the world felt like a bit of a chore in 2024. So I went into Captain America, Brave New World without any prep. I don't even think I watched the full trailer for the film, but of course, I saw snippets about a certain angry red character. There were certainly no rewatches, and if you have listened to the Cosmic Circle podcast, you'll note that's exceedingly rare. I wasn't sure what to expect, and based on some of the early review chatter, had concerns I would be totally lost and hate it. I'm happy to say that that wasn't the case with Captain America, Brave New World. If you're a casual Marvel fan, you won't be lost with the multitude of characters and points. From other stories, director Julius Onah did a pretty good job of helping to show why Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson is a hero. As if all the other Avengers movies didn't do that already. It's got all the tension of a believable political conspiracy thriller, has some really interesting and exciting action, and has some excellent Marvel-sized visuals that look great. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it is fun and even thought-provoking at times, and maybe that's enough. I wasn't disappointed at spending the time in the theater to watch. This film has plenty of Easter eggs and deep cuts for Marvel fans. Without spoiling the exact details on how this movie handles the island-sized celestial problem from the Eternals in a way that really makes sense for the type of political thriller this movie is. For those who like to piece together the puzzle of what's coming next in the MCU, Captain America, Brave New World plants several tantalizing seeds of probabilities. I'm excited for what's to come, And with Thunderbolts Asterisk and the Fantastic Four, first steps on the horizon over the next few months, that's a good thing for Marvel. Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson has been Captain America for some time. He's settled into the role and has a cool Air Force-sponsored headquarters, but still has a ton of lingering baggage over the weight of the shield and how to keep people safe. While the Avengers, the Blip, and the Celestial in the Ocean are all old news timeline-wise, the world is still dealing with the fallout. We enter into this movie with a new American president and a dicey diplomatic situation. We jump into the action with Cap fairly early in the film. The military puts him on a special mission that we learn later on, entangles Cap and the people that matter to him into an international incident. Wilson doesn't waste any time jumping into action that unfolds throughout the course of the film. Unlike the typical superhero spectacle, this film chooses a more intimate scale, centering on politics, personal struggles, and unraveling a mystery rather than world-ending battles. It's a superhero political thriller, an espionage-style story where power plays and secrets drive the tension. While other reviews skim over this angle, I think it's a fresh and underappreciated direction. The story hinges on Sam Wilson, now Captain America, working for Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, the newly elected president of the United States, as they confront an international crisis with an allied nation that pushes the U.S. to the brink of war, forcing both President Ross and Sam to confront their values and question their roles in shaping the world's future. Beneath the surface, it's a layered exploration of identity, power, and duty. The film keeps you guessing who to trust, which makes it feel a bit like a more spy thriller than a traditional superhero showdown. Also, because it doesn't follow the standard Marvel movie formula, I think it gives the film an identity that most superhero fans might not be expecting. First impressions. What struck me is that this movie represents the identity crisis facing superhero films today. We've oversaturated ourselves with these stories to the point that the actors, rather than the characters, define the heroes that they play. The fault lies with the studios for building their empire around actors instead of characters, and now they're scrambling to redefine these heroes with new faces, which feels forced, and it will have serious implications on the future of the franchise that is going to make it extremely difficult for them with each new film. The identity crisis of superhero films. This film captures that identity crisis really well through Sam's confrontation of his imposter syndrome feelings. He wrestles with imposter syndrome. Is he good enough to be Captain America? Should he have taken the super soldier serum? Can he ever fill Steve Rogers' shoes? The film asks whether Captain America is a person or a title, and I think the answer is that the title alone isn't enough. Marvel has chosen to treat these heroes as roles that can be passed from person to person within a story world, but that misses what makes these characters iconic. I also can't ignore how Marvel's approach contrasts with DC's new Superman film and how they are restarting their franchise with a new origin story and a new actor, or the James Bond franchise, where different actors inhabit the same character over time without changing the essence of who James Bond is as a character. A superhero isn't just a title to be handed down. They are characters with identities, pasts, families, and other issues that define who they are as people. With each new passing of the mantle, we not only have to learn a new person within the story world, but we have to get used to a new actor, and we have to learn how that character and actor fit into the title of the superhero they are inhabiting. And that is a lot to ask of audiences with each new film, especially since most of these films feature ensemble casts that don't do much in the way of character building. And frankly, that's a problem for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. Harrison Ford's performance as President Rosso. Let's talk about Harrison Ford because he owns this film. His portrayal of President Ross is nuanced, layered with pain, hope, and a desperate desire to be better. You feel his internal battle. He's a man who's lost so much but still pushes forward for what he believes is right. Subtle clues, like scenes showing him taking medicine, hint at his hidden health struggles, adding another layer to his character. This isn't just a Captain America film. It's a film about two men trying to be their best selves. Ford delivers a masterclass performance that makes this as much his movie as it is Sam Wilson's. Artistic direction and technology visually, the film has its moments. But, like so many modern blockbusters, it falls victim to over-reliance on digital backdrops. You can spot scenes where the dynamic LED screens, like those used in The Mandalorian, replace real-world locations. It works sometimes, but in a couple of key moments, it feels flat and artificial, undermining practical effects and hurting the realism in crucial action scenes. Also, Sam's vibranium suit is a mixed bag. It protects him from some hits but fails to shield him from others, an inconsistency that pulls you out of the action. The problem with Marvel's marketing, one of my biggest gripes? The marketing. Disney and Marvel completely misled audiences. The trailers pitched a showdown between Captain America and Red Hulk, which not only misrepresented the story but also spoiled what could have been a major surprise. That undercut the potential payoff and robbed the film of its tension. The real villain, who I won't spoil, was left out of all the marketing, which would have been fine if they hadn't falsely set up Red Hulk as the antagonist. It was a cheap move and it disrespected the audience. Creating a marketable villain. This brings us to the film's real villain, who is conspicuously absent from all marketing materials, from the trailers to the posters. In the movie, it's clear that someone is orchestrating events from behind the scenes, pulling the strings with precision. This mysterious antagonist is not only powerful enough to engineer these remarkable occurrences but also visionary enough to understand why they need to happen. Interestingly, he views himself as the hero of the story, making him one of the most compelling characters in the film due to his complexity and dynamic presence. Unfortunately, despite these qualities, the way he was physically presented in the film didn't turn him into a compelling enough leading villain who could be teased in a trailer or highlighted on a poster. A stronger physical presence or design could have elevated his role significantly and would have added to the overall story. Even if the filmmakers felt he wasn't visually compelling enough to showcase in the promotional materials, they could have at least hinted at a mysterious mastermind pulling the strings. This subtlety would have heightened the tension between Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie in the promotions without spoiling the reveal of Red Hulk, preserving the element of surprise. Unfortunately, the film lacked any major surprises, which was disappointing. If I could offer Disney and Marvel any advice for future films, it would be to craft trailers that don't give away the entire movie. Have confidence in your story before filming begins, because when you resort to reshuffling the narrative and adding in extensive reshoots, as was done here, it becomes glaringly obvious. Additionally, when marketing materials reveal too much or promote a different version of the film than what is delivered, audiences are left feeling deceived and robbed of an authentic cinematic experience. Themes and what this movie is really about. This movie is a superhero political thriller about identity, trust, and reconciliation. It critiques the idea of superhero roles as titles rather than characters with depth, questioning Marvel's approach of passing roles between different characters rather than maintaining continuity. The film also highlights the conflict between Sam's personal mission and his duty to follow the president's orders, adding tension to his internal struggle. It explores whether the Avengers are still necessary and if superheroes even have a place in a world that fears them. It also raises questions about leadership and integrity. What does it mean to work with someone who was once your enemy? Can you move forward without erasing the past? Sam and Ross's relationship is complex. They challenge each other, clash with each other, but ultimately, they need each other. Recommendation and final thoughts. Marvel and Disney. Going in anyway, taking his lumps and still coming out on top. There's a grit to Mackie's performance of Sam Wilson that was always on the surface. His bravado came across as plucky in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and became more capable but reluctant through to Endgame. Brave New World gets to the depth of who he is. Sam Wilson wasn't even this fleshed out as a character until Rick Remender made him Captain America in the comics in 2014. And now he's in living color, pun intended, as Cap, on screen in 2025. Blurred note. Mind you, the character's publication history starts in 1969. By 2014, that's a whole 45 years of existence with mild to limited substantial growth before an explosion that takes the character into the strata of pop culture and film. 10 more years after that, a lead role in the MCU. Anthony Mackie, in essence, puts his spin on being Cap the way Sam had to in the comics. There's a nuanced layering. Anthony Mackie is playing Sam Wilson, who was the Falcon, and now the Falcon is Captain America. In Brave New World, Sam Wilson finally owns being Captain America, and so does Mackie. About the movie, Brave New World enters the MCU as a political thriller. Director Julius Onah employs the same genre vehicle the Russo brothers designed for Captain America movies from The Winter Soldier, popping in and out between multiple locations connected by narrative thread, making the world feel smaller and smaller and the threat larger and larger. The action is clean, Sam isn't Steve Rogers, and it shows in the best ways. Without enhanced strength, the effort and precision skills make fights tighter and more close-up. The action pieces move the plot along, but the plot is muddled and a little unclear tonally. Here's why we can't tell whose movie this is. The Ross effect. Harrison Ford steps in for William Hurt, who passed from cancer in 2022, as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, who becomes President of the United States and is revealed in the trailer to become the Red Hulk. Ross is a rare MCU character who elevates the Hulk lore by using military might to measure and showcase Hulk's strength. Ross also grounds the Avengers lore by noting how their actions impact real people. Ross was born in the comic pages as a Hulk nemesis and mainstay who matriculated from the page to the screen in the Incredible Hulk movie. The end credit scene for that movie finds Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark walking into a bar to tell Ross he's putting together a team. On its own, that scene blurred the line between what we know to be a Hulk movie and what we would come to expect from an Avengers movie. Ross's presence changes the tone of a Marvel movie. Brave New World can't decide if it's a Hulk movie or a Captain America movie. It feels like an Avengers movie shoehorned into a Captain America movie, stuffed into a Hulk movie. Adding Tim Blake Nelson's reprisal of Samuel Stern's /Leader into the mix so heavily only further muddled things. Sit rep. Brave New World is a high-quality action movie trying to do work on two fronts. It tries to broaden the galactic lore by adding the Eternal in the ocean that no one has referenced since the Eternals. It also tries to broaden the Earth-based lore by reintroducing super soldier espionage, trying to reestablish the Gamma Wars, and folding the Serpent Society, Sam Wilson's primary nemesis from the comics, into the MCU. There are a lot of great performances, but they can't overshadow the many, obvious changes, cuts, and reshoots that make the movie feel like a jigsaw puzzle with pieces almost fitting together. There's also a strange and cringe-inducing, can't we all just get along? And can't we disagree and still be friends? Vibe that is being echoed throughout media at large. Note from the writer. The military takes center stage in this movie in a way that feels more like the closeted, support messaging in the Transformers franchise and Top Gun movies. It's not too much, but it is noticeable in the current political climate. I know all of the main characters are military involved, but there's something present that wasn't there before. Just a feeling.